Roses are red, violets are blue. I have some news headlines from Israel for you. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Shavua Tov, Shalom. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief brought to you by Lay of the Land, where we take a look at those top stories making headlines every Monday to Thursday. And just a reminder, not so subtle, that you can visit our website at www.layoftheland.online for all your original content. And if you fancy yourself a Lottel writer, pop us a message and let's get you loaded. We are also on Facebook at the Lottel site. If you haven't already joined our growing community there, please give us a like or a follow. And our YouTube channel is The Israel Brief. And we would love it if you hit that big red subscribe button. Come on, it's Valentine's Day. You know you want to show us some love. And we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5, so give us a follow there. But without further ado, let's take a look at the headlines. And as tensions increase between the Ukraine and Russia, and as there is talk for the possibility of a Russian invasion, some believe it might happen on Wednesday, Israel is making plans to evacuate as many of our citizens as possible. Prime Minister Bennett yesterday advised Israeli citizens in the Ukraine to please take heed of the advice. Please do not take any security risks and board a plane and come home to Israel. There have been 32 planes dispatched for this week to bring Israeli citizens home. Plans are also underway by the Ministry of Aliyah to, if needed, evacuate up to an estimated 200,000 Ukrainian Jews. Now, it is believed that maybe 75,000 Ukrainians are, in fact, Jewish, but the Ministry of Aliyah has made allowances for 200,000, some of whom will be homed temporarily. Now, yesterday, the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Ukraine was in Israel and met with our Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid. We don't know too much about what was discussed in that meeting, but we do know that the Foreign Minister has said we are hoping for a de-escalation in tension soon. Now, today, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, as well as British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, have been amongst the Western dignitaries to try and appeal to both sides not to allow the escalation to happen. We will be watching events as they unfold in the Ukraine very, very carefully and bringing you updates right here on the Israel Brief. In other news, we are still talking about the Amnesty International report, and for good reason, because it does have far-reaching consequences. And while it has been highly unusual for states to come out and comment, countries don't normally comment on reports issued by NGOs, and the latest two countries to join or to reject this report, one is Canada and the other is Ireland. Very unusual for Ireland, who have a not always friendly relationship with the state of Israel. The Irish TSEC have said that the language and the accusation of apartheid is unproductive and that they will be examining the report closely. But the report, while largely ignored by the mainstream media, does have an effect on places like university campuses, especially as next month is Israel Apartheid Week in many campuses around the world, and in global institutions like the United Nations, which I think is the agenda of Amnesty International and their fellow cohorts, Human Rights Watch and others. They want to bring the question or the issue of Israel's sovereignty under question at a global institution. But what has been remarkable is the amount of Arab Israelis to outrightly reject the report. We've heard from activist Youssef Haddad. We've heard from various ministers, including the Minister of Regional Cooperation, Isawi Snej, who says it's definitely not an apartheid state. And the latest person to add his voice is the chairman of the Ra'am party, Mansour Abbas, who has said that he outright rejects the use of the word apartheid. And if there is discrimination in certain areas, that will be addressed on an individual basis. But he prefers to focus on the future. Imagine that, focusing on the future. And I'm sure many of you can tell by my accent that I'm originally from South Africa. And I just want to remind people that I grew up during the apartheid years in South Africa. And apartheid was something very unique and specific to that country. It was the state legislated laws that determined that anybody not white was inferior to the white population. In fact, to be more blunt, the apartheid laws allowed the minority white community to rule over the majority black community with laws that governed every aspect of a person's life. And most definitely during that time, there was no representation for any community of color in the government. So just hearing from our Arab Israeli leaders completely debunks the apartheid allegation. The report is also very discriminatory in that it conflates Arab Israelis with Palestinians and essentially erases an entire community from Israel and their notable contributions and achievements. Our next story, and we look set to welcome the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, from the United States to Israel on Wednesday. Pelosi will be welcomed with an official ceremony in the Knesset. She will visit the Knesset. She will meet with Israeli officials. And it is believed the reason for her visit is to reiterate that strong bipartisan support that Israel enjoys from the United States. And we end our broadcast, and I can't think of a better way on the International Day of Love than to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Gulf Jewish Communities. The Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is comprised of Jewish communities from countries like Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. I know it's almost inconceivable to believe that we have communities in these countries, but we do. And as Bahraini Ambassador Huda Nunu says, this is nothing short of miraculous. We have seen Hanukkah celebrated not once but twice. There have been weddings, bar mitzvahs, incredible celebrations of Jewish festivals and high holidays, and long may this organization continue to flourish. And while we're on the subject of Bahrain and the Gulf, it has been announced from the Prime Minister's office that this evening he will make his first historic visit to the Kingdom of Bahrain, a 24-hour visit, and he will meet with the King of Bahrain there. Bahatzlacha, Mr. Prime Minister, and may it be an extremely fruitful visit. So those are our top stories making headlines, and I just want to reiterate that you can join us every Monday to Thursday. Show us some love by subscribing to all our social media. I'm Rolene Marks, signing out from the Israel Brief with love from me and appreciation to all of you. See you tomorrow.